This is the Outlap F1 podcast featuring America's own Cody, Andy, and Deanna. Your one-stop shop for Formula One news, insights, race previews, and reviews. Join us on the Outlap.
Think there's only one way to introduce this weekend. Yes, that's right. Viva Las Vegas. That is where the Formula One circus has arrived at. You have also found the Outlap F1 podcast, but it's our 2025 Las Vegas GP preview show. You've got Andy, and I'm along with Cody tonight. It is good to see you again, sir. How's it been hanging?
It's been really nice. Looking forward to some much-needed holiday time off coming up next week. We get a nice Formula One Saturday night race to kick it off. So definitely in a good place.
Yeah, we've still got championships to be decided. We've got constructors standings to be decided all up and down the grid. There's going to be battles throughout this field for sure. And I am all here for it. We are riding this roller coaster all the way to the end. If you have found our show, as always, welcome along. We're glad that you're here. You can find us on X, on Instagram, Discord, Reddit, and of course here on YouTube at Outlap F1 Podcast is the handle for all of that. If you enjoy what you're looking at, you like what you're hearing, if you're on YouTube, if you want to leave us a like, or if you want to subscribe to the channel, that would be great. If you're on your favorite podcasting app and you're enjoying the content, if you want to leave us a 5-star review, that will help our stuff come up a little bit better in F1 related search results if you're into content like this. You can always email the show as always, outlapf1@gmail.com. We'll get your thoughts to us. Thank you so much for our continued supporters. Without them, I don't think we'd be still probably doing it at this point, but thank you so much. You guys all know the list. Here we go. Dean Warwick, Yuri Dolchester, Paul Weaver, Quentin Warden, Kevin Kelly, Regan Stanzik, Timothy Brown, and of course, Jonathan Scott. Thank you so much for continuing to support the show. If you'd like to join that esteemed list, get a shout out at the beginning of each episode. There is a link in our show notes. It does take you to our Anchor page. We would appreciate it if you wanted to leave $1, $5, not a whole lot of money, but if you don't have to do that if you don't want to. We're just glad you're listening is first and foremost. But if you'd like to do that, that money would just go back into the show and keep our technology as relevant as it can be. All right. Well, we have had a bit of news come across in the last week and a half since the checkered flag fell in Brazil. Sergio Checo Perez has gone out and has tested a Ferrari car at Imola. It didn't look like a Ferrari. It wasn't run at full power. I think it was more about trying to get himself refamiliarized with the engine modes more than anything, as he's switching now to a Ferrari-powered Cadillac next year until Cadillac brings their own engine and power unit into play in a couple of years' time. But yeah, it was an all-blacked-out Ferrari. It was a car running on track, tracking some cameras. Cody, thoughts on what you read or what you saw on Checo's running?
It was good to see him back in a Formula One car. The car not having any livery on it at all gave it a vaguely jet fighter-like appearance, which was pretty cool and really kind of reminds you that these are a pretty amazing feat of technology. He also did say that his neck survived the days, which is good. I imagine that if you're not doing those exercises every day, that your neck gets a little floppy when you're going around in the car.
Yep.
So it's good to see him getting back in the swing of things, and looking forward to seeing him in the Cadillac proper.
Yeah, I've also read some other stories that because he's scheduled to be back in next year, the Mexican GP we're almost a year plus out of that race, has sold out. So the basic tickets from the promoter have all sold out. Checo will be back next year. The Mexican fans are more than ready for it. So yeah, I mean, it was good to I don't think you can take anything away from the running itself. I don't think he was allowed to actually do what you would call a push lap. It was really more about learning. I think it really was just more about learning, like, this is what Ferrari says this mode does, and this is what Ferrari says this mode does, so that when he's in the car for testing, he's got some basic vocabulary there. So makes a lot of sense. I was glad to see it happen. I would expect Valtteri Bottas in maybe the next few weeks as well to maybe do something similar, as he kind of ramps back up for the 2026 season.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, one of the big topics that we discussed on our show at length, and we criticized the FIA for, was that I guess it's a controversial penalty, Oscar Piastri's penalty in the Brazilian Grand Prix, the 10 seconds for causing the collision. And it has prompted F1 and the drivers and the FIA to all sit down and kind of have a talk about it, because they all want to get together and try to figure out what is the right way to handle these driving standards, because nobody seems in the push for consistency, we've gotten more inconsistency, which is kind of, you would call that irony, but it's Formula One, so I'm not surprised. But anyway, they're going to get together in Qatar, and they're going to discuss both the guidelines and kind of how the stewards are going to try to handle these rules in the last couple of races this year, and obviously moving forward into next year. I think dialogue is always a good thing, but Cody, what's your thought on this meeting that's supposed to happen over the Qatar weekend?
I think it's a pretty good indication that most everybody thinks that Oscar Piastri's penalty was some level of bullshit, and that there's been a lot of penalties like that issued over the last couple seasons here. So I think it's good that they're going to talk about it. Hopefully that means that it'll get ironed out even further. Ultimately, nobody's going to be 100% happy, because the drivers are always going to come. It's in their DNA. It's in what they have to do. They're going to complain if they feel something unfair happens on track, even if it's totally fair. It's all about their perspective. So that isn't going to go away. But hopefully we can get to a place where us as fans and the commentators aren't sitting there looking at an incident going like, well, it's a penalty by the rules, but it's kind of bullshit. Yeah. Hopefully we're going to get a little further away from that.
Yeah, I mean, I hope they try to elicit some common sense, and I hope they also try to say, not every incident needs a response. It kind of felt like the idea of like going down the same kind of rabbit hole that I think professional hockey's gone down, where they would hand out suspensions for players based on how long, like if you hit somebody and the guy was out for a month because, he hurt his knee as a result of that hit, you would get like a 2-week suspension. Well, if it's, and then, you'd see it basically the same hit on a guy who wouldn't hurt his knee, and he bounced back up and was okay and finished the game. And maybe he'd get a penalty, maybe he wouldn't. So we're kind of going down that same rabbit hole here. And it's almost like, okay, we got to pull back from that, because you just get this maddeningly inconsistent treatment. And then, as soon as I saw that happen, I went, they're going to hand out something because they feel they have to, because Leclerc's tire came off. And if Leclerc gets back on the track and Antonelli gets back on the track and finishes the race, maybe they don't do nearly as much, or they don't do anything at all. I think if you can get back to, you call it the way you call it in the first race of the year, you call it the way you call it in the last race of the year, is what I think I would like to see come out of that. But we'll see if we get any new clarifications, and if we'll stay on top of it. And if we find anything out of that, we will bring it to you when it happens. Okay, well, for those of you in the gaming world, big announcement actually came out. So every year for the last, 12 years, the Codemasters people have brought out a new version of the F1 video game. I think that's gone all the way back to 2015. There's been F1 2015 all the way to F1 2025. Well, for 2026, what they're going to do is they're not going to release a brand new game per se. They're going to add on to the 2025 game that's already out. So they're going to use the same platform, same servers, and all of that. And what they're going to do is they're going to make 2026 a downloadable thing. Cody, you all right over there, sir? Do you need
my kitty slipped and it hit me where it hurts.
The cats are part of the show, folks. The cats are part of the show.
That is the truth.
Anyway, back to the video game.
There's a couple things here that I think are interesting. One, it kind of says that, ultimately it's all going to be about the money, but it kind of shows that Codemasters think they've got a pretty good framework for the game on the 2025 season issue of the game. It also, to me, kind of shows that they're probably not really entirely sure how to do the new regulations in the game yet, which is fair, because it's going to be wild. A lot of the teams aren't even really sure exactly how things are going to go next year. To me, that sounds like a safe bet. They're like, we got a pretty good thing going here with 25. We don't know what to expect for 26. We're probably going to have to patch it along the way to make it more like what the cars end up actually looking like on track. So yeah, to me, that makes sense to, to try to build that into their existing framework so that they can get it going and after it fairly quickly. Ultimately, that'll probably make them more money too, because they're going to have to put less development into a game that they're, probably going to still charge like $40 for the downloadable content. Or knowing EA, it's probably going to be like $100. Hopefully they're hoping it's going to make more money, and I'm hoping that it is just okay.
Well, yeah, What I hope is that at least just the add-on is a tad cheaper than like the $60 they charge for the base game. But it does give everybody some time. They can wait on some of the coding until they watch a race or two, and can probably help to make it a tad more accurate with what they're actually seeing, as opposed to, throwing a dart at a dartboard and praying to God they don't miss, which you could easily have. And, if you've got results in the video game that don't seem to mimic what's actually happening on track, the gaming community is obviously going to be very vocal and very loud about all of that. So I understand that. Apparently, they're also talking about a rebrand for 2027. They're bringing back the old EA title for F1, where it'll just be F1 2027, but it won't necessarily have the Codemasters, because EA, has acquired all the Codemasters people. So they're going to get rid of kind of that branding. Don't know what I think about that. That's way off in the distance. So I'll kind of comment on that kind of as we get closer to it. Yeah, I think it makes sense if you were trying to develop a game. I mean, the tracks aren't changing. Like, here's what we know. We know the tracks aren't changing, so that makes sense. You don't have to do all new architecture there or new coding for that. The platforms themselves are relatively stable. We know we've got PS5, the PC out there. If you're a hardcore PC gamer and all of that. So, and it won't necessarily require you to get new hardware or any of that stuff, because people have their big gaming rigs. I also read a story that said Max Verstappen's new house is going to house the biggest gaming rig probably ever that he's designing from scratch right now. Yeah, I know, totally. Like, he's just going to be able to go in there and can basically, race his whole season. But yeah, I mean, it's probably makes sense, but we'll keep our eyes on, what happens with the game. I know that's how a lot of people relate to the game. When I was a kid, that's how I related to sports and learned a lot of sports in the background, was playing the game and doing my own stuff on it, because, you just felt more connection to it that way. But anyway, we'll keep on this one. All right, back to the actual in-person racing. One of the topics we talked about on our last preview was that the FIA had talked at one of their last commission meetings about two-stop races. None of that's been adopted for now. There was a discussion. It definitely was talked about. But that said, we are going to have our one more mandatory two-stop race this season. Pirelli has made it official for Qatar, a max of 25 laps on any set of tires during the weekend. It is, of course, a sprint weekend, so all of that throws all of that allocation way more into the mix. So you should expect your Sunday Qatar race to have at least two stops, because it's a 57-lap race. Can't do more than 25 laps on a set of tires. That equals at least a two-stop. Cody, what's your thought here? We've kind of seen different rules for Qatar. We kind of talked about it before. That track really probably isn't what they should be racing on, but it's what we got.
Yeah, and I still pretty much stand by that sentiment that this is a sign that this track is really not suited for Formula One cars. They got to do something. Like, I don't know if next year they need to bring like a C-1 or something to last for this, but it's pretty ridiculous whenever they have this race. You got drivers looking like they're going to die because it's super hot. Maybe not quite as bad as Singapore for that, but it's really, really, really hot. It's really hard on the tires. I think the 25 laps, I don't remember exactly what the restriction was a couple seasons ago.
I thought it was like 18 or something. It was like
I thought it was less. So I think this is at least not quite that restrictive. It might, 25 laps, you might actually see some tire wear before they like just fall off a cliff and explode. Yeah, I think it's pretty ridiculous that we have to do this in the first place. So yeah, they got to bring some kind of better tires for Qatar, design something for this, or they got to just stop having this race here, or they got to have it a different time of year. Although I think for Qatar, that probably doesn't make much of a difference what time of year you have it. It's probably still going to be really hot and really aggressive. So yeah, that's a bit of also, if we're going to be really technical here, it's not necessarily two stops, because you could have a red flag.
That's true.
But I just have
That's true. We would have to see, two changes of tires.
The max of 25 laps is the restriction. And based on how many laps there are, yes, that would indicate that you would need, under all non-stopped conditions, you would need at least.
Right. Because don't forget, when we did Monaco, when we did this, they mandated you had to stop twice. Yep. You had to go down the pit lane.
Not the same restriction.
Twice. This is different. You're right. If they have a red flag, they can throw a set of different tires on and get another fresh set of 25 laps. If you got to halfway point and you hadn't overused your tires for whatever reason, and then the red flag was to come out and then they would do a restart, you're absolutely correct. you would have that there.
Something else to note here is it's not a limit of like 25 laps on the tires in the race. It's that many laps over the course of the weekend for the tires. So
Right.
if they throw on any used tires during the race, those will have a lesser amount of time that they can be run during the race.
Yeah. So I mean that would affect, like, if you were to go back to like your set of softs or a used set of softs, if you were a driver who made it all the way to Q3, that's usually the case when you'd see it. So yeah, it's going to definitely throw some kinks into the strategy of what teams would prefer to do. We'll have to see kind of how it plays out. I'm not surprised given what I've been reading about it. It just kind of seemed like they were all going to do it, and then they came out with the announcement earlier this week that they're going to do it. Yeah, Qatar, once again, going to be an oddball one, just like it kind of always is. All right, the last story, I threw this in here as just kind of a fun little story because way back when in the day when Cody and I were growing up together, we used to have these epic family get-togethers, and the epic family get-together would always culminate in the 3 and 4 hour game of Uno, or the long ass game of Uno that sometimes would have drunkenness and go into the Nate and all this other stuff. So I saw this, and that's what I instantly went back to. So it's called Lights Out, Game On, introducing Uno Elite, a high-octane twist at the classic game. This all-new elevated version of Uno features drivers and cars from all 10 teams, along with a selection of team principals, reserve drivers, and helmets. Uno Elite F1 brings the energy of the grid to every hand. We should record ourselves trying to play this game. I think it would be hilarious for
I'd
content
absolutely
at
do
some
it.
point.
Yeah,
What's your
we've
thought?
played so much Uno over the years, and to have the F1 spin on it would be great. I own many versions of Uno.
Yep.
And something that I'm actually kind of interested in is, I don't know how many of our listeners, or especially our dedicated listeners, are from abroad. I know Rachel Fleming is from the other side of the pond. Do you guys play Uno? Because my best friend is staying with me at the moment, and he travels the world through his job, and I found out through his tales that a lot of things that I thought were just normal things are apparently distinctly American. And I got to wonder if Uno is one of those
That
things.
might be. Yeah, I mean, as later as we've gotten older and everything, it's more evolved into drunken poker versus drunken Uno. But it is a fond memory of mine, staying over at my parents' house after like Thanksgiving dinner, playing Uno into the long part of the night, and then realizing, wait, we have to get up and do things tomorrow. Oh, we have to stop now. Or the hand where, you don't get the color, and then the next thing you know, you have 3/4 of the deck in your hand. That would be hilarious, especially with F1. And then you could just do, sound effects as you're driving, as you're picking up, I can think of all sorts of fun things to do. I read this and it just gave me a laugh. If you haven't ever played Uno before, it is an experience. I recommend that you do it. It's based off of a card game called Crazy Eights. So that would be kind of how I would start, would be to look up the original card game, and you kind of see kind of how Uno kind of takes it in a whole different other direction. But it's fun. It's something F1 themed. I think we have to own a set for the show for sure. All right. Well, we just kind of want to get everybody in a good mood. We are going to take a quick break. We'll re-rack. We'll come back. We're going to talk about the Las Vegas Grand Prix, as it is less than 24 hours away. In fact, at this time tomorrow, we'll be in between Free Practice 1 and Free Practice 2, because they've moved it up 2 hours. So it actually will start at a decent time, especially if you're in the US. If you're in the UK, I'm sorry, you kind of get the butt of it this time. 4 a.m. start for you guys. Ouch. But have been there, done that, and I'm sure we'll have participation from our hardcore folks across the pond like we always do. So we're going to take a quick break. We'll re-rack. We'll come back. We'll set up the track facts. We'll talk about the weather. The weather in Las Vegas has been, let's just put it so far, very atypical. So we'll talk about there's been a lot of social media about it. I want to kind of clarify what's real and what's kind of like, it's all real, but there's some context you have to understand particularly about Las Vegas. We've been there a couple times and I've learned some things. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about what the weather may or may not do over the course of this weekend. And then we'll try our best to figure out what is going to happen at a track that throws up some weirdness. It always has in the 2 iterations of this race. Nothing has necessarily gone according to plan like it does for the rest of the season. So this is an outlier. Who do we have winning? Who do we have getting on the podium? Might be different than what we're used to. So come on back. We'll get into it in just a minute.
You are listening to the Outlap F1 podcast, and we'll be right back after this quick pit stop. Grab your flu powder, broomstick, or apparate to your favorite audio streaming service to join the discussion on Hogwarts, a podcast, where Dan and his friends have in-depth chapter-by-chapter breakdowns of each Harry Potter novel. Join the group as they dive into the magical world and discuss plot points, analyze character development, and occasionally go off the rails. Whether you're a muggle who's new to the series or a pure-blood wizard who won't need a remember-all, Hogwarts, a podcast, brings everyone to the Great Hall for a magical discussion. Hogwarts, a podcast, available wherever you get your podcasts.
All right, welcome back on in. This is season 7. Wow, you can tell when you don't do stuff. Season 7, episode number 42. That is now correct. Of the Outlap F1 podcast. It's our 2025. I have not been to Vegas. I'm not hungover, I swear to God. Our 2025 Las Vegas GP preview show. You've got Andy and I'm along with Cody tonight. Now it's time to focus on the race in front of us. It is the Las Vegas Strip Circuit. It is brought to us by the good folks at Pirelli Motorsport, the Track Facts. Cody, sir, take it away.
All right, this weekend, Formula One heads to Las Vegas to race around the Las Vegas Strip Circuit, located in, you guessed it, Las Vegas, or Paradise, I think, if you want to get really technical, in Nevada, United States. Number of laps for the Grand Prix is 50, and the length of the circuit is 3.853 miles, or 6.201 kilometers, and consists of 17 turns. Tire selection from Pirelli for this one is C3, C4, and C5 tire compounds, and the Pirelli track characteristics are 2 out of 5 for traction, 1 out of 5 for asphalt grip, 2 out of 5 for asphalt abrasion, 5 out of 5 for track evolution, 4 out of 5 for tire stress, 3 out of 5 for braking, 2 out of 5 for lateral load, and a 1 out of 5 for downforce, which should make Max Verstappen very happy. Qualifying lap record here goes to last year's winner, George Russell. He set that pole with a 1 minute 32.312 seconds, and the race lap record also occurred last year's race, and that went to Lando Norris with a 1 minute 34.876 seconds. Most wins at this track, since there's only been 2 and there's been 2 winners, it's a tie, 1 apiece to Max Verstappen and George Russell, and that goes the same for the constructors, Red Bull and Mercedes with 1 win apiece. What's the circuit like, Andy?
All right, it is located in the heart of Las Vegas. The 6.2 kilometer, 17 turn street circuit winds its way past iconic locations like Caesar's Palace, the Bellagio, and the Venetian. With average speeds expected to match Monza, otherwise known as F1's Temple of Speed, there promises to be plenty of action and overtaking. And in the first 2 iterations, I would say that actually happened. As for the weather, now, I am not exactly sure how to bring you the weather for this, because some of it's in the daylight, some of it's at night. So I'm just going to bring you the forecast, and we can kind of figure it out as we go. So I'm calling this the Thursday-Friday running, because depending on where you are in the world, you may find it sometimes on Friday. But for the daytime, it's going to be clear skies, sunshine, and clouds mixed, a high around 60 degrees. So it's definitely on the cool side to start for sure. Winds out of the east-southeast at 5 to 10. 24% chance of rain, but here's where the rub comes in. For the night forecast, rain showers in the evening will evolve into a more steady rain overnight. Look at this. Low of 49 degrees. Winds light and variable. Chance of rain is 80% at some point during the night. Is it after the cars are done? I don't know. We're going to find out. Locally, heavy rainfall possible. For Friday/Saturday for qualifying, rain showers are during the day. Rain showers early with overcast skies later in the day, so probably should be dry for qualifying. High of around 59, winds out of the north at 5 to 10, a 60% chance of rain during the day. The night forecast says cloudy, low of 48, winds out of the northwest at 5 to 10. That chance of rain goes down to 20% overnight. For our Saturday/Sunday, for the daytime, partly cloudy to mostly cloudy, high around 65, winds out of the north at 5 to 10, only an 8% chance of rain. For the night, when the cars will be running, partly cloudy skies, a low of 47, so very, very chilly. Winds out of the northwest at 5 to 10. I saw the chance of rain only at 3% for the night. All right. Yeah. So the weather for this race is ridiculously hard to predict. What they've had going on in the area, and you've probably seen some social media video about it, is it's normally they're like what they call their monsoon season is usually in August. It's not their monsoon season, but what's happened is we've had these series of different systems come through over the California mountains and stuff, and they've dipped into the Las Vegas area, and they kind of sit and spin around the city. So what we've had is we've had periods of rain. Sometimes it downpours for like 10, 15 minutes. And a lot of the social media stuff that's probably been picked up has been what they call the link. And it's a series of tunnels that usually is just a parking garage. The city intentionally allows this to flood, and it looks just nasty. It looks like, oh my God, the world is coming to an end. How are you going to run cars around this track? Well, it all funnels into this series of tunnels that goes from the city out to the big reservoir of water about 20 miles outside the city called Lake Mead. It looks very dramatic. It only takes an inch of rain to get this like gushing thing through the tunnels. And then you see pictures in the casinos of there's water coming through the roofs and everything. And Vegas just isn't built to handle a lot of water. About 3 hours after this usually happens and the rain leaves, it dries up massively. I've seen some other videos of people going, 3 hours after this gushing video was taken, it's like a little tiny little trickle and you can actually see dry spots and you can open up the parking garage again. So it's very, very localized. So yes, is there rain in the area? Yes. Is there a chance we could have some interrupted running potentially? Yes. If it rains really hard, would anybody go out? Possibly. That could be something that would happen. My guess is your opening night is going to be your best night to see that rain. I think probably for qualifying in the main race, we're probably going to be dry. But that's my guess.
It would be interesting to see the Formula One cars going around in the rain in the desert. I promise you it is a desert. The rain will go away.
But one of the things that isn't going to be that was a big problem last year with the grip levels, you're not going to see as much dust because it's been raining. It's been actually moist in the atmosphere. You're not going to see as much dust. It's actually been washed off because of all of the rain that's been falling. So interesting to see what that does to the tarmac. So another factor as we get into things here. All right. Well, what do we think is going to happen with all of the weird variability potentially from the skies? Weird track, one-off winners. We've seen all sorts of weird stuff. And of course, this is year 3. What do we think is going to happen? We will start with our predictions game like we always do with our pole sitter. Last year's pole sitter was George Russell in the Mercedes, who just looked dominant. I rewatched the highlights earlier today of the 2024 race. Mercedes, who just came to play and just kicked everybody's asses that weekend, man. But I see what hat you're wearing, Cody. I think I know where you're going to go with this one, but what you got?
So at the risk of being a Debbie Downer, I have accepted that Max Verstappen is most likely, almost certainly not going to win the championship this year. And I had said last time that my predictions might get a little more realistic now. That said, this is actually realistically a track where Red Bull might be okay again. So I am going for Max Verstappen for pole sitter. I have to give it one last hurrah, maybe will it into existence, considering this is probably his best hope to get one more win on the season.
All right, very good. We'll lock that one in for you. All right, I'm going to go because this is such a one-off. I normally the last few weekends I've been picking Lando, and he's luckily have proven me right the last 2 Grand Prix out. It's going to be a tough order for McLaren to really get their arms around this track. I don't see the corners as necessarily suiting what that car does well. The temperatures, as I just went through the weather, certainly doesn't help what that car does particularly well at. So I don't think they're going to be as bad as last year. I don't think they're going to be like seconds off the pace like they were at times last season. But that having been said, it's a tall order to go from like 6th on the grid is where they were last year up to P1. So I'm not picking Lando and I'm not picking Oscar here. So I go, okay, who would be a fun pole sitter? And I'm looking at a guy who's had some decent, really good results the last 2 weekends. I'm also thinking it's Las Vegas. Why not? Let's do this. So I'm going to say Kimi Antonelli for the pole. The underage kid who can't have a drink in Las Vegas is going to go out there and get all the prizes this weekend. Kimi Antonelli is my pole sitter for this weekend's race. All right, the pole time last year was a bit faster than the first time we raced around the track. 132.312 set by George Russell. What do we think for lap time here? Faster, slower? Cody, what you got?
I don't really know what to do with this one because of the weather that's going to potentially be messing with stuff. So I'm actually going to go, I kind of just decided I was going to go for a course difference here and just decide I'm going to go exactly 1 second slower than last year. I have no idea if that's going to actually hit. but it's going to be a 1 minute 33.312.
All right, very good. Because of I think, like I said, I think the where you're going to see the most weather being affected is probably going to be the Friday running. I think if you can get past Friday day into Friday night, I bet it's probably going to dry out. So that would leave FP3 and qualifying to really get ramped up for it. Because they also open the track up to pedestrian traffic during the day, the track has to re-rubber in each session as it is. So it's going to start green. It's going to rubber in throughout the course of the running. So I think the lap time is going to be pretty darn close. I think we're going to get close. I don't know if we're going to be faster, so I'm going to go slightly slower. 1:32.585 is my lap time here. All right. Moving into, I would normally say the Sunday race, but Saturday night's all right for fighting for us. We're going to do this on Saturday night. It's going to be fun. Our race predictions for Saturday night. Last year's podium, George Russell took the win. Lewis Hamilton came in second. Carlos Sainz for Ferrari. Remember, he was yelling at his team, "Why didn't you box me 2 laps earlier?" Thought he could have finished maybe in second. Wasn't to be for him, but Ferrari showed very well here. Mercedes showed very well here. Red Bull only came in 5th, but that was enough to give Max Verstappen the championship last year, and McLaren only came in 6th. So different names potentially at the front. I know Charles Leclerc has thought this was his best shot to get a win since Hungary actually was when he last, I think, when he uttered that comment. But anyway, Cody, what you got for a race podium?
Still going with the Max Verstappen vibes, just probably for at least this one last race. Got Max Verstappen taking the win. This is a bit of a weird one-off type of circuit. And like you said, Mercedes and Ferraris actually went pretty well here last year. So I've got George Russell coming in second place, and Charles Leclerc, who was really good here in the first race, had that really awesome overtake for P2 right at the end. Didn't do too bad here last year either. I got him wrapping up the podium with P3. Fortunately, that means that by my predictions, Ferrari is probably going to go winless for the season.
All right. Well, yeah, it's been a tough whole road for the Scuderia. I don't see them winning this race, even though it may be one of their better shots. Just don't see it in the cards. But I'm going to stick with my Kimi Antonelli just taking all the prizes and then having to go back to the hotel room. So Kimi Antonelli to take his maiden win. Wouldn't that be a story for your Formula One out there? I do think Max Verstappen is going to come to play. I do think there's still the Drivers' Championship to be sorted out. And I do think they're going to follow each other. I think Max Verstappen is going to have probably the better of the competition, given the fresh engine, given the low downforce, given what he did at Monza. So I've got him coming in P2, but I've got Lando. The McLaren are going to figure it out good enough to get through this race. That's all I'm hoping for, honest to God. But I've got him on the podium. I've got Lando coming home P3 on the night. All right, so I got Antonelli, Verstappen, Norris is my podium there. All right, so for our fastest lap and the driver, 2024 fastest lap was set by Lando Norris on the last lap, an homage to the fastest lap point, because I don't think anyone would come in and put a set of soft tires and go out and set a blinder lap at the end of the race anymore. 34.876, that's now the current lap record. All right, so Cody, who do you have for fastest lap, and do we see a new lap record this time?
I do think we're going to see a new lap record because everything should be relatively back to normal by the time we get to Saturday night for the race. I've got Charles Leclerc doing it. Don't know why, just good vibes, I guess. And I have him doing it just slightly faster than last year with 1 minute 34.774 seconds.
Right, very good. I've got Ferrari vibes in here too. I think Lewis Hamilton will probably take this. Maybe just throwing a set of soft tires on at near the end. Maybe not at the end, but near the end. We'll have to see what happens here. But I've got Lewis Hamilton taking the fastest lap. 1:34.987 is the lap time there. All right, so our bonus picks were P7, P11, and P20. So a good cross-section of the race here. Cody, what you got for your bonus picks?
All right. This one's going to probably upset some people, but a combination of recent poor performance over the last bunch of races and McLaren having yet to put in a pretty good race here. I've got Oscar Piastri coming in P7. Got Fernando Alonso just missing out on the points in P11. And unfortunately, I've got Franco Colapinto coming in last place, more on the Alpine than anything else.
Fair enough there. All right, so for P7, even though he's in a Williams, Carlos Sainz has had the trials and tribulations at this track, but he's also had some good results. I think last year was much better than his first time out. So I've got Carlos Sainz coming home P7. I do think this is a track that Alpine do better at, but I don't know that it's going to necessarily translate to points. Remember, Pierre Gasly, I think, qualified 4th here last year. Yeah.
And then his engine
but I
blew up.
I don't have enough. Yeah, exactly. But I don't have him necessarily converting that into points. I've got him P11, and I do share your sentiment Franco Colapinto. I think it's a low grip car that easily wants to spin out. And Franco Colapinto's driving style probably all leads to 1, 2 plus 1 plus 1 plus 2 plus equals 3 type there. So I've got Franco Colapinto. I'm agreeing with you there in P20 as well. All right. So for our prop bet, and where better to do a prop bet than in Las Vegas, but because we're back in the USA, it's our last foray in this country before we set sail for Mid East for the last 2 races of the season. Does anyone from Team USA, that can be Haas or Williams, next year it'll be Haas, Williams, or Cadillac, score points on the weekend? I love what Ollie Behrman is doing in that Haas. I think he's dragging that car into places it doesn't belong. I think it's awesome. I can't wait to see what he does. He's very racy around here, so I'm going to say yes. Cody, what's your thought?
Yeah, just on Oliver Behrman's recent performance alone, I think you could make a pretty good argument that at least he'll get some points here. And yeah, if we're counting Williams as being USA due to their ownership, I think Williams, they're kind of moving away from that, straight line, high speed, merchant type of car, but I still think that they've got a pretty good shot at getting points here as well. Hoping for a good one from Alex Albon. He's been kind of flying under the radar a little bit lately. It'd be nice if he had a really good finish.
Yeah.
So my answer is yes.
Okay. So if, but, therefore. All right. Very good. All right. So where and when can you find your F1 this weekend? Now, it's all, if you're in the United States, normally we're talking about rising and shining early. This one's about the late night coffee all the way around, especially if you are east of the Mississippi River. Practice 1 kicks off right in prime time. Talk about this. I'm actually going to have trouble catching this session because I'm going to be driving home from my job. Free practice 1, Thursday, 7:30 p.m. Eastern. Turn off the football game, watch some cars go around Las Vegas. 6:30 p.m. Central. That'll be found on ESPN News. Practice 2 kicks off later, of course, in the evening, 11 p.m. Eastern, 10 p.m. Central for us here. That'll be on ESPN2. Practice 3, again, 7:30 p.m. Eastern, 6:30 p.m. Central. So dinner time with some Formula One pre-practice 3. Normally it's breakfast, but I love this. Qualifying Friday kicks off 11 p.m. Eastern, 10 p.m. Central. That'll be on ESPN2. And for the race on Saturday, 11 p.m. Eastern, 10 p.m. Central. 2 hours earlier than last year in the United States. That'll be on Big ESPN. Lots of other streaming options. F1 TV is, of course, an option for you if you have ESPN Plus. There's additional stuff from Sky that they still have the rights to it till the end of the year, so they will continue to put that out as well. All right. Well, Viva Las Vegas. Who gets the good spin of the roulette wheel or the slot machine, or who draws the right card at poker? I could go on. I have a million of these things. But I'm going to stop now, and we're going to kick it back over to the F1 drivers and the F1 teams for the weekend. But Cody and I will be back to recap all of the weekend's actions on Sunday. After all of the action ends, we're going to get some good rest because we'll be up kind of late, especially if I'm trying to get all of the group chat and the post race stuff in. So it'll be a late night.
Record at like 2 a.m?
Well, I'm game if you are, mate, but I don't think you really want to.
That's a big one.
I mean, just, if Lando Norris takes the win and basically wraps this thing up, I'll be ready to go at 2 a.m. I got no problem with that one. But anyway, so if the neighbors hear a hoop and a holler from either of us, now we know why. But anyway, we'll be back on Sunday to recap this thing. Until then, enjoy this weekend's action. Take care of yourselves out there. And as always, may all your laps be fast.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of the Outlap F1 podcast. If you like what you heard, click that subscribe button and be sure to leave us a 5-star review. If you want to connect with us outside of the show, check out our website at www.outlapf1.com. Find us on Twitter and Instagram at OutlapF1 Podcast, or email us at chatnow@outlapf1.com. As always, thank you so much for your support, and we'll see you on the next one.